Hey guys, it's Jeff. So Phala Phala is back, and I know what you're probably thinking. Wasn't this whole thing years ago? Well, yes, the actual burglary did happen more than 6 years ago, back in February 2020. But remarkably, we're still trying to get to the bottom of what happened. And now President Cyril Ramaphosa is facing an impeachment process. He's objecting to the advocate chosen to lead the evidence against him, and the MK party wants Parliament to go and visit Phala Phala itself. So let's quickly go back to where all of this started. In February 2020, burglars broke into Ramaphosa's Phala Phala game farm in Limpopo and stole about $580,000 in cash. The money was apparently hidden inside furniture, and Ramaphosa says it came from the sale of a buffalo to a Sudanese businessman. There is also a separate criminal trial happening over the burglary. 3 people are currently accused: Emanuela David, Friliana Joseph, and her brother Ndile Joseph. They all have links to Namibia, and David has been reported as Namibian-born and also holding a South African passport. They have pleaded not guilty, so those allegations are still being tested in court. But South Africans only found out about the burglary more than 2 years later. In June 2022, former spy boss Arthur Fraser laid a criminal complaint against Ramaphosa. And that turned this from a burglary at a private game farm into a major political scandal. Because Fraser's allegations weren't only about where the money came from. He alleged that members of Ramaphosa's Presidential Protection Unit became involved in tracking down and interrogating suspects, including across the border in Namibia, and that state resources were improperly used. And there was another particularly serious allegation. Fraser claimed that after some of the suspects were traced, they were paid 150,000 rand each in cash to keep quiet about what had happened at Phala Phala, allegedly on Ramaphosa's instructions. He also alleged that a domestic worker received 150,000 rand in return for her silence. Now, that is an allegation, not an established fact, and Ramaphosa has denied any wrongdoing. But it's an important part of the story because the controversy isn't simply about dollars hidden in furniture. It's also about whether there was an attempt to keep the burglary and everything surrounding it out of the public eye. Parliament then appointed an independent panel headed by former Chief Justice Sandile Ngcobo. In November 2022, that panel found there was prima facie evidence that Ramaphosa may have committed serious violations and potentially had a case to answer. Importantly, that was not a finding of guilt. In December 2022, Parliament voted not to proceed with the report. Most ANC MPs voted against taking it further. The EFF and the ATM challenged that decision, and in May this year, the Constitutional Court set Parliament's decision aside. Suddenly, Phala Phala was back. Parliament then established an impeachment committee, but Ramaphosa is also challenging the original Section 89 panel report in court and obtained an interdict, stopping the committee from starting its public hearings while that challenge is dealt with. The committee can, however, continue preparing, and that's where the latest controversy comes in. Earlier this month, the committee selected advocate Thandazani Madonsela to lead the evidence. Ramaphosa has objected to his appointment, but Onsela previously provided legal advice to the ANC relating to the impeachment process, and Ramaphosa also removed him from the Judicial Service Commission in 2022. Ramaphosa says that creates a reasonable concern that Madonsela could have a grievance against him. Opposition parties see it very differently. The EFF says Ramaphosa is simply finding another way to delay the process. The ATM has also called it a delaying tactic, while MK Parliamentary leader John Schlopper has argued that if the president has nothing to hide, he should allow the process to continue. The DA has taken a slightly more cautious line, saying Ramaphosa has legal rights, but warning that the process cannot become a never-ending legal battle that stops Parliament from doing its job. And then there's another interesting development. The MK party wants to go to Phala Phala. They've asked the committee to consider an in loco inspection, basically taking MPs to the farm to inspect the scene themselves. The committee hasn't agreed to it yet, but Chairman Makashule Gane hasn't ruled it out. But there's another bit of context here that I think is difficult to ignore. South Africa's local government elections are happening on 4 November, less than 3 months from now, and the ANC is heading into those elections under serious pressure. A recent poll in Johannesburg, for example, found that the ANC got a mere 18% compared with the DA's 42%. Now, that's a Johannesburg poll, not a national poll, so we shouldn't read too much into one number. But having your party president sitting in a televised parliamentary inquiry, answering questions about dollars hidden at Phala Phala is probably not exactly the campaign image the ANC would choose. Now, can I prove that Ramaphosa is deliberately delaying this until after the elections? No, and I don't think we should pretend that we can. He says he's exercising his constitutional rights and ensuring that the process is fair. But politically, I do think it's fair to ask whether the timing matters, because every objection, review, and legal fight has the practical effect of pushing the substantive questions further down the road. And at some point, the argument about procedural fairness starts to collide with a very obvious reality. This has been going on for more than 6 years. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in foreign currency. Serious allegations about what happened with that money, allegations that suspects were paid for their silence, and questions about whether state resources were improperly used. None of those allegations should simply be assumed to be true, but surely they should finally be tested. So for me, the priority now should be simple. Get to the substance, hear the evidence, call the witnesses, visit Phala Phala if that genuinely helps, and put the allegations squarely before the president. Ramaphosa doesn't need to be presumed guilty, but neither should this process simply be allowed to drift indefinitely. And with an election now just around the corner, I think South Africans are entitled to ask whether these delays are entirely about procedural fairness or whether politics is starting to play a role as well. Either way, 6 years later, South Africans deserve answers.